In the quiet town of Silvergrove, a simple mother-daughter picnic unexpectedly becomes the beginning of an incredible event. They invite a lonely older man to lunch, not realizing that he is a missing Marine colonel. Soon, a military helicopter appears over the park, and a team in uniform arrives to bring the hero home in a grand ceremony. Welcome to my channel. You know how some Sundays feel like a gentle exhale? That was today. My name's Claire Whitman. I'm 37, teach 4th grade at Willow Creek Elementary, and I'm the single mom of a precocious 8-year-old named June. We live in Silvergrove, a sleepy little town in northern Illinois that still puts up flags on Main Street and waves at mail trucks. Sundays are sacred for us. No screens, no chores, just old-fashioned time together. This afternoon we drove out to Millstone Park, a place stitched into the quilt of our memories. Same knobby roots under that big elm tree we always sit beneath. I spread our picnic blanket with a practiced flick, laid out our lunch, egg salad sandwiches, apple slices, and thermos lemonade, and started setting out napkins when I saw him. An older man sat alone on a bench, maybe 30 yards off, partially shadowed by an overgrown lilac bush. He had silver hair and a kind of tangled halo, a beard that looked like it hadn't met a razor in weeks. His jacket was faded denim, buttoned up even though it was nearly 70 degrees. But what caught me were his eyes, clear, sharply intelligent, and far away, like he was watching a movie only he could see. Other folks at the park gave him a wide berth. Joggers curved their paths. Parents tugged their kids away with tight smiles and whispered warnings. I watched a father in a baseball cap change course entirely when his daughter pointed toward the bench. "Mom," June said, nudging me. "Why's that man sitting all by himself?" I looked at him again. No bag, no book, just a clear plastic water bottle set on the ground beside him. No motion, no interest in anything around him. "I'm not sure," I told her. "Maybe he's just tired. Or lonely. Do you think he's hungry?" I said carefully. "We have more food than we need." June immediately began digging in the basket, selecting her best sandwich like it was treasure. Walking toward him, I felt the shift in the air. That subtle disapproval. A man grilling hot dogs nearby paused and watched. A woman with a baby carrier scowled. One mom at a neighboring blanket muttered, "Don't encourage them." I ignored them. "Excuse me, sir?" I said gently, standing a few feet away so I wouldn't startle him. "My daughter and I brought more lunch than we can eat. You're welcome to join us if you're hungry." He looked at me slowly, his gaze narrowing as if assessing whether I was real, or maybe just trying to remember how conversations worked. Then he gave the faintest nod. "We're right over there under the elm," I added, gesturing behind me. "Lemonade and egg salad. Nothing fancy." He stood, not quickly, but not stiffly either. Something fluid remained in his movement, something trained. As he followed me back, I could feel the stares multiply. "This is June," I said as we reached the blanket. "And I'm Claire." He lowered himself to the blanket's edge, his knees creaking. He didn't offer his name, and I didn't press. When June handed him a sandwich, he took it like it was something sacred. He ate slowly, methodically, scanning the park every few seconds like he was checking perimeters. I'd seen that look before, in my cousin Jeremy, after he got back from his 3rd deployment. A woman nearby leaned toward her husband and stage whispered, "I wouldn't let my kid within 10 feet of someone like that." I pretended not to hear. June leaned close and whispered, "Why does he look so sad, Mom?" "Because," I said softly, "it's probably been a long time since someone invited him to sit." And that's when everything started to change. After we finished eating, the man reached into his jacket, slow, deliberate, and pulled out a piece of cloth. I thought at first it was just an old rag or handkerchief, but when he unfolded it, I saw the faded insignia, an embroidered patch, Echo Company, 3rd Recon, a pair of wings and a dagger beneath it, not one I recognized from any brochure at the VFW hall. "My dad was in the Army," I offered, breaking the silence. "Never talked much about it." The man gave the faintest nod, eyes softening slightly. He ran his thumb across the patch like it was a worry stone, his hands trembling just enough to catch the light. "I was there," he said. His voice was low, like the rumble of a far-off train. "Then I wasn't." Cryptic, heavy, like something ancient rolled into 10 syllables. I didn't ask more. Not yet. Sometimes the best conversations aren't really conversations at all, just spaces where someone's allowed to exist. Then June, being June, pointed to a thin, silvery scar on the man's wrist. "Did you get hurt?" I started to apologize, but he raised a hand, just a slight motion, to let me know it was okay. "A long time ago," he said. "Sometimes the outside heals faster than the inside." A young man walking his golden retriever slowed down near us. He stared openly, then lifted his phone and angled it like he was taking a selfie with the tree behind him. But I caught the telltale motion. His camera lens wasn't on himself. It was aimed at us. He walked off laughing, phone already outstretched to show someone else. The man saw it too. I watched the change. His shoulders stiffened, his fingers curled slightly around the patch. He started folding it again, carefully, like it was a flag. "Would you like some more lemonade before you head out?" I asked, trying to keep things normal. "Safe." He nodded faintly and took the cup. Just then, a jogger in a USMC t-shirt slowed near us, glanced at the patch in the man's hands, and nearly tripped over his own feet. He kept running but turned his head again and again as he disappeared down the path, something urgent in his stride. What we didn't know was that the jogger, Corporal Brian McKenzie, retired, was already pulling out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. He sent a message to a private veterans group online. "Pretty sure I just saw Colonel Hank Lawson." Yes, that Lawson, at Millstone Park. Can't be 100% sure, but the old Echo Recon patch was right there. "Anyone else in Silvergrove confirm?" The photo from the laughing passerby was already making its rounds, reshared with captions like, "Single mom adopts a stray vet, bad choices, but wholesome." But in those corners of the internet where men and women still remembered call signs, dust storms, and midnight radio codes, the reaction was starkly different. "That's Lawson. My God. He's alive." We had no idea, sitting there under that elm tree, what kind of fuse we just lit with an egg salad sandwich and a seat on a blanket. I wish I could say I noticed something change in the air right then, some warning ripple or subtle wind shift. But all I knew was June had gotten a bit of dirt on her knees chasing ants, and I was trying to figure out if I had enough wipes left in my bag. The man, he hadn't given us a name, but I was starting to call him Hank in my head. Just something about him. Watched June with a look I can only describe as tentative gratitude. Like she was a memory he thought he'd forgotten how to hold. After helping me pack up, he reached into his pocket again. This time, he pulled out a small wooden carving, looked like a wren, hand-whittled, delicate wings arched mid-flight. He handed it to June without a word. "Did you make this?" she asked, eyes wide. He nodded once. She clutched it like treasure. I started to thank him, but he stood abruptly, the earlier ease gone from his shoulders. "Time for me to move," he said, his voice clipped. "Can't stay long anywhere." He didn't say goodbye, just turned and walked toward the western trail that led out toward the creek. 15 minutes later, I was buckling June into the car when I heard it. That deep, unmistakable thump-thump-thump that seems to vibrate in your spine before you even register the sound. A helicopter. Big, low, military. Not your usual news chopper or medevac. I shaded my eyes and watched as a Black Hawk swept into view, hovering low over the open soccer field beside the playground. Dust and leaves swirled, napkins cartwheeled across the grass, kids pointed, parents screamed. June reached for my hand. "What's going on, Mama?" "I don't know, sweetheart," I said truthfully. The chopper lowered. 4 figures jumped out in full uniform before the skids even hit the ground. Behind them came a 5th, a man in formal dress blues, medals catching the late light like stars in motion. They moved with purpose, eyes scanning the crowd. That's when I saw him, Hank, standing tall, still in his weathered jacket and boots that looked older than me, already waiting. The officer approached, halted exactly 5 paces from him, and saluted sharply. "Colonel Henry Lawson, sir," he called out, his voice clear even over the fading rotor wash. "Lieutenant Colonel Dean Mercer, 3rd Recon Command. Permission to escort you home, sir." A silence fell over the park so complete, you could hear a squirrel shift in the trees. Lawson didn't return the salute immediately. His head tilted slightly, scanning Mercer's face, maybe making sure he was real. Then, slowly, precisely, he straightened to full posture, chin up, eyes locked, and raised his right hand. "You're late," he said, and smiled for the first time. That smile, I'll never forget it. It was small, tired, and didn't quite reach his eyes, but it was real. And for a man who hadn't even told me his name, that expression said more than words ever could. Colonel Mercer stepped forward, his face splitting into the kind of grin you only see on men who've walked through something awful together and come out breathing. Barely. Behind Mercer, another figure emerged from the helicopter, a civilian, but with that unmistakable military carriage. Broad shoulders, a slight limp, and a stiffness in his left arm like he still wore a sling, even though nothing was there. He crossed the grass toward Lawson. "No, Henry now, I suppose," and when he spoke, his voice cracked open like an old book. "Henry," he said, "you son of a gun. You really made it." Henry didn't flinch. "Ryder," he replied, nodding once. "Still limping, I see. General Ryder. That's who he was. Former commander, according to the murmurs around us. But what caught my breath was what he said next. I'm not here as your superior. I'm here as the father of Captain Josh Ryder, the last man you pulled from Firebase Orion." Henry looked away, and something shifted behind his eyes. Something deep and old. "I didn't save enough," he murmured. "I never did." "You saved my son," Ryder said. "That's enough for me." Behind them, a pair of younger soldiers approached June and me. One of them, she had kind eyes, maybe late 20s, offered a respectful nod. "Ma'am," she said, "I just wanted to thank you." "For what?" I asked, genuinely baffled. "You saw him," she said simply. "That's more than most ever did." The other soldier handed me a folded paper. "This explains a little. It's not classified anymore." Inside was a summary, more like a declassified briefing sheet, about Operation Crescent Spear, a recon mission in Afghanistan gone wrong. Henry Lawson had led a 6-man unit. Intel was bad. The site wasn't empty, it was a hornet's nest. Only Lawson made it out. Barely. He disappeared weeks later. No benefits. No contact. Just vanished. Until today. As Henry prepared to board the helicopter, his shoulders squared, eyes focused, I stepped forward, June at my side. "Thank you," I said, "for sitting with us. For not walking away." He looked at me then, really looked. And there it was, that flicker of quiet relief. Like the kindness of a sandwich and a child's question had pulled him 1 inch closer to the shore. "Thank you," he replied, "for making space at your table." And then he was gone, lifted into the sky, a figure silhouetted against the sinking sun, returning to a world that thought he was lost forever. The helicopter thundered off toward the horizon, and I stood there in the swaying hush that followed, June's small hand still in mine, the little wooden bird nestled in her other palm. People slowly came back to themselves. Conversations reignited. Questions buzzed like flies. Some kids reenacted the scene already, arms out like blades, pretending to leap from helicopters. A few parents laughed nervously, but others just stood still, staring at the empty patch of grass where Henry had been. A woman who'd given us a particularly cold look earlier stepped toward me, her sunglasses off now, held in one hand like a flag of surrender. "I'm sorry," she said, and it wasn't forced. "For what I said before. I didn't know." "It's okay," I told her. Neither did I. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept thinking about Henry's eyes, that mix of vigilance and weariness, the kind that comes from spending years trying not to be noticed, only to be found anyway. I wondered what he saw in people like me, what he expected when we offered kindness. Suspicion? Pity? Hope? By morning, our quiet little town had already exploded. The picture, the one that kid snapped pretending to take a selfie, had gone viral. But not for the reason he probably wanted. It was on veteran forums, Facebook groups, Twitter threads. Not with snarky captions anymore, but with solemnity. Reverence. A retired major had reposted it with the words, "He's alive. Colonel Henry Lawson. Echo Recon. Never forgotten." News trucks showed up at the park. Reporters buzzed around downtown. My school principal called to ask if I wanted to make a statement. I declined. "This isn't my story to tell," I told her. "I just happened to be there." But still, people kept asking, "What was he like? Why did you talk to him? Did he say anything about the war? The missing years?" I never answered those questions directly. I just said, he was hungry. We had a sandwich. That's all. But it wasn't, of course. It never is. Within 3 days, our little park was on the national news. Not just the story of Henry Lawson, the long-lost recon commander, presumed dead, now returned, but the moment of it. The setting. The blanket. The sandwich. The child. They even had a name for it, the Millstone Miracle, which, if I'm being honest, made me cringe. There was no miracle, no divine beam of light. Just a woman who didn't want to throw out leftovers and a man who'd forgotten what it meant to be welcomed. Still, the story spread like wildfire. Veterans posted tributes. Family members of Lawson's fallen squad sent in photos and comments. People argued in forums. Was he a hero, or had he walked away from duty? The military released a statement calling him an individual who bore the cost of command in the most human of ways. The next weekend, June, and I returned to the park. Our blanket found its usual place under the elm tree. Same thermos. Same sandwiches. But something had changed. People were different now. Less guarded. A pair of teenagers sat near an older man on the same bench where Henry once sat, sharing a soda, laughing. That's when I noticed the new addition. A bench freshly installed. Bronze plaque, polished and new. It read, "The Kindness Bench," where a mother taught her daughter the right thing to do. I felt my chest tighten. It was simple, quiet, just like Henry had been. And then I saw the flagpole. I hadn't noticed it before. Maybe it had been erected during the week while the news vans crowded the grass. A new American flag fluttered above the park now, its edges stiff in the breeze. I looked at June, who was holding the carved wooden bird up to the sunlight, watching how its wings cast a shadow on the blanket. She noticed me staring. "Why are you crying?" "I'm not," I said, wiping my cheek. "Just thinking. About him." "Yeah, about him. And about what it means to see someone, really see them, when no one else does." It was a Tuesday when the courier knocked. A plain white envelope, no return address, just our names written in the tight, slanted handwriting of someone used to writing under pressure. Inside was a note. Handwritten. No military header, no official seal. Just the truth, plain and quiet. Claire and June. For 10 years, I chose not to be seen. I believed I didn't deserve to be. When people looked at me, I saw judgment. Or worse, pity. So I kept my head down, moved on before anyone asked questions. Then one Sunday, a little girl handed me a sandwich like I was just another person on a sunny afternoon. And her mother didn't ask what I'd done. She didn't treat me like a ghost. That was the first time in years I felt human again. Thank you for that. Sometimes salvation doesn't come with fanfare. Sometimes it looks like lemonade in a plastic cup. A grateful Marine. Enclosed was a small silver charm. An oak leaf, no larger than a quarter, carved with care. I knew instantly what it was, a token, a memory. We fastened it to June's bracelet that night. She wore it like it was made of diamonds. That week, something strange started happening at the park. People began sitting on the kindness bench, not just to rest, but to be with each other. A teenage boy with sleeves pulled over trembling hands sat beside an old woman with grocery bags. A man in a business suit shared a granola bar with a woman sorting through her shopping cart. No one made announcements. There was no movement or slogan, but something had shifted. It was as if Henry's presence, his silence, his weight, had left behind a kind of gravitational pull, drawing people in. Every time I returned, I saw something else. Someone else. Connections forming like moss growing in sunlight. Quiet, inevitable, and deeply rooted. The town had changed. You could feel it in subtle ways, how people paused a little longer before judging, how I softened instead of narrowed. And yet, it wasn't just about Henry. It was about the cracks he revealed in all of us, and the kindness that had slipped through them. I got a call from the local VFW post one evening. A gruff voice introduced himself as Commander Lyle Weaver. "Heard you were the woman who shared her lunch with a ghost," he said, then chuckled. "We'd like to put your daughter up for a community commendation." I declined, of course. She didn't do anything special. She just shared a sandwich. "We both know that's not true," he replied. Later that week, June and I went back to Millstone. We sat on the kindness bench this time, just for the change of pace. It felt different. Not just a bench anymore, it was a place of pause, like a church pew without walls. A man with weathered jeans and nicotine-stained fingers was there, talking to a young woman whose hair was bright purple and knotted into a bun. He called her kid. She called him sir. They shared a silence I recognized. And then I noticed something tucked under the slats of the bench. A folded note. Weather-worn and yellowing. Someone had left it behind. To the one who sat here before me, thank you. You reminded me not everyone sees the world in black and white. Some of us live in the gray. And sometimes, that's okay. I haven't spoken to my father in 5 years. Today, I'm going to call him B. I left it there, but I added something below the line. Just a few words. We all carry something. Thanks for not carrying it alone. It struck me how something as simple as a bench, a tree, a sandwich could become holy ground if the right people showed up. The weeks rolled into months. The leaves turned. School picked up. Life moved forward, the way it always does. But Millstone Park became something else, less of a recreation spot, more like a sanctuary. Veterans started showing up more often. Not in groups, not loud or proud. Just one here, one there. A man in an old Navy peacoat who fed pigeons like clockwork. A woman with sharp eyes and a Marine Corps tattoo on her wrist, sketching in a notepad. I recognized them not by their clothes, but by the way they watched the world, like it might start burning at any moment. One afternoon, a man approached me near the bench. He looked familiar, though I couldn't place him. "You're Claire, right?" he asked. "The one who found Henry." "I didn't find him," I said gently. "He was just hungry. We had food." "Well," the man said, his voice rough but kind, "you saw him. That's more than I can say for most of us. We were all looking with satellites. Turns out all it took was a picnic." He handed me an envelope. "From Henry." Inside was another note, shorter than the first. "Some debts are paid with silence, others with memory. I've started talking again. It's harder than I expected, but easier than staying gone." I told them about everyone we lost, and everyone we saved. "The truth is weight, Claire. Thanks for helping me carry it. Tell June I'm keeping the carving knife busy. She'll be getting a whole flock soon." It was signed, Hank. Just that. Not Colonel Lawson. Not Henry. Just Hank. That night, I sat on the porch with June. The air was crisp, the kind that smells like burning leaves and wood smoke. She held the little wooden bird in one hand, rocking it gently on her lap. "What does the leaf mean, Mama?" she asked, tapping the charm he'd sent. I looked at it, silver and simple, shining faintly under the porch light. "It means," I said slowly, "that sometimes the bravest people don't wear uniforms anymore. But they still deserve to be remembered." A year later, they held a ceremony, quiet, private, and mostly military. It wasn't in a stadium or on a stage. It was in our park, just off the trail, under that same elm tree. They didn't call it a memorial. They called it a restoration of presence. Henry, or Hank, as he insisted on being called, stood tall in a clean jacket, hair trimmed, face weathered but clear. He didn't speak much, just nodded at the folded flag they presented him, and then sat beside June on the kindness bench like nothing had changed. But everything had. That afternoon, a courier came by the school. He brought me a package, a wooden box, hand-carved. Inside was a small bird, this one in flight. The wings outstretched, tail feathers splayed. Lighter than the one he gave June before. More detailed, more free. A note inside read, "There was a time I thought flight was for others. Turns out, I just needed to land somewhere safe first. Thank you for letting me touch the ground." Over time, the plaque on the kindness bench gathered other notes. Folded papers, tokens, even a dog tag. Once, people came from out of state to sit there. Not just veterans. People carrying all kinds of weight. And somehow, when they left, they looked a little lighter. June grew up knowing that kindness wasn't about grand gestures. It was about presence. A sandwich. An empty seat. A willingness to see. Sometimes at dinner, she'll still look up from her plate and ask, "Do you think he's okay?" And I'll say, "I think he's trying." And sometimes, trying is the bravest thing anyone can do. The world didn't change overnight. But our little corner of it? It became a place where people looked twice. Where silence wasn't mistaken for absence. And where one Sunday afternoon proved that no one is too far gone to be invited back to the table. If you've ever witnessed someone carrying invisible weight, if you've ever offered the simplest act of recognition, then you already know. Sometimes a hero doesn't need a rescue. They just need a place to sit.